Ja si myslím, že aj toto podujatie je svedkom toho, že na mnohých školách, univerzitách či na akademickej pôde a výskumných inštitúciách vzniká veľké množstvo nápadov a inovácií. Ale čo keby z toho dokázala ťažiť celá spoločnosť? Samozrejme, musí sa to uchopiť za ten správny koniec a dať tomu možno aj nejakú tú komerčnú podobu a tým pádom sa to môže dostať medzi ľudí. Jedným slovom, aby vznikla, aj tak sa to dá povedať, spin-off firma. Som preto rád, že tá nasledujúca diskusia, ako už vidíte, pripravuje sa, vnesie viac svetla do tejto témy a pozrieme sa na to, ako sa dajú správne uchopiť tie nápady a nepustiť ich len tak, alebo aby zanikli v tom výskume, vývoji, ale dostali sa do spoločnosti. Opäť máme kvalifikovaného moderátora, prípadne moderátorku, teda takto poviem, a ja už slovo odozdávam pani Kataríne Čefalvajovej, ktorá si predstaví samozrejme aj hosti a bude vás sprevádzať touto panelovou diskusiou. Nech sa páči.
Ďakujem veľmi pekne za uvedenie. Thank you very much for the introduction. We are going to hold this panel discussion in English, so I'm switching to English language. Good afternoon, everyone. It's an honor and a pleasure for me to welcome you here at one of the last debates or discussions of this year's edition of the SlovakiaTech Forum. And I think that we are going to look into an important topic on how research institutions can accelerate the double challenge of the green and digital transition that we are currently facing through academic spin-offs. Spin-offs are crucial in turning groundbreaking research into tangible, market-ready solutions, fostering innovation, economic growth, and sustainability. However, I think it is safe to say that Slovakia has not yet fully tapped into the potential of its universities, and that there remains a significant gap between research and the market. So today we will explore the key challenges and opportunities in creating a thriving ecosystem for academic spin-offs, particularly in Slovakia and also perhaps the broader CEE region. We are fortunate to have with us experts from both academia and industry who will share their insights on best practices, on how to overcome barriers to commercialization, and the role perhaps of policy in supporting this ecosystem. Ladies and gentlemen, please allow me to call to stage my three distinguished panelists today. Professor Robert Thomas from the Georgia Institute of Technology. Mr. Miroslav Michalko, Director of University Science Park Technicum at the Technical University of Košice. And Mr. Peter Šoltes, CEO and founder of Promiseo and member of the board of Košice IT Valley. My name is Katarina Čefalvajová. I'm the executive lead of the Danube Tech Valley initiative at GLOBSEC. So to kick off this discussion, perhaps, Miro, if I might be maybe this familiar, let me turn to you. I know that you are not only the director of Technicum, of the science park at the Technical University of Košice, but you are also involved in the process of creating it. It can be said that you are one of the founding fathers of Technicum. So I would be very curious to know what challenges have you been facing also in putting together this science park to create academic spin-offs? What challenges are you perhaps facing right now? What are the lessons that you learned and perhaps some first successes?
So first of all, thank you very much for inviting me to this event and round table. As was presented by you, I'm director of the University Science Park, and the Science Park is a structure which got written in DNA, a technology transfer and support for innovation companies, not only startups, which can come not only from academia and from university. We are supporting also startup ecosystem within the region, but of course we are working with our researchers and academic staff to support them with creating of their own spin-off companies. In field of innovation, I think that our university is really good for last year. In field of spin-off, just to be maybe correct, we have only few good experience from the past, so we are not maybe the best example in Slovakia in supporting the spin-offs in our ecosystem, but we are working on it, and we are trying to change a lot of obstacles we are fighting with at the university. There are few challenges we need to face, and we have a good experience from the past, but it was not some systematic support coming from the university. It just randomly someone really smart with innovation potential comes and created its own company. But during the last years, we are changing the way how we are supporting our internal ecosystems at the university. So your question was what challenges do we have? There are many challenges because university is really unique ecosystem. Where the faculties have its own, rules and many formal procedures. So if someone from the university is trying to establish own company, own spin-off, there's always a big discussion. What is the part of knowledge or background or technology which is coming from the university, and how big percentage of this innovation is coming from the researcher? How faculty will be participating then on the company which will be created. So first thing, I think, first problem we have, it's quite complex internal legislation within the university. Within the university, not from the government, but internal at the university. And then what we are building at our university is a fully operational technology transfer office is still in process. We are learning, we are transferring knowledge from the universities, from the Western Europe, from US. We are trying to copy maybe the best practices we see there. So now we are in a phase that we are trying to find the good people who will lead this technology transfer office, because we need to have the IPR issues and many things supported by the internal ecosystem. If someone will come from the university with an idea to start its own spin-off, it's a process, and it's quite a complicated process. So we are trying to establish the way to make enough, manuals to have support in business, to find investor, to prepare documents between the faculty and this legal entity. There's many things which got to be solved. So we are on this way. But still, frankly speaking, I think we are not the best example, but we're trying to build an ecosystem at our university which will support this transfer knowledge from the faculties to the market. Many things we can discuss, so maybe later I will explain all the things we are fighting with, because there's a lot of things. But just to shortly summarize, we still have many internal issues within the university, and I understand that there is a big complexity coming from the governmental rules, tax rules, and everything what is related with the creation of a company. But the university is also like a state within the state, so we are fighting also with the internal processes in this.
Absolutely. That sounds like a lot of challenges that you are facing, and congratulations on gradually overcoming each and every one of them. I'm also from an academic background, so I know very well what you're talking about if you talk about internal politics and policies at universities. This is somehow how we create our own enemy within the universities, right? Just allow me now, Bob, to turn to you, because I'm really, really happy that we have a representative of one of the world's leading technical universities, Georgia Tech Universities, who is here with us, and who at the same time is someone who is familiar with the Slovak ecosystems. We have just discussed yesterday that this is Bob's 9th or 10th time in Slovakia, and I had the honor and the pleasure of accompanying you also at a mission to delve into the innovation ecosystems in Bratislava last year. So I would like to ask you, Bob, what do you perceive with your perspective, which is not from the region, from an external milieu? How do you perceive the challenges that we are facing here, and perhaps are there any approaches from the US that could be successfully adopted and that we are not yet aware of, perhaps, or not yet adopting?
Thank you. It's a real pleasure to be here. Like I say, I think this is my 10th trip to Košice. And it's interesting, we just had, here on a Fulbright specialist project that we're looking into a topic called peace engineering. But I had a colleague from Georgia Tech who was here a month ago, and his Fulbright scholarship was looking at innovation and entrepreneurship. And he is our vice president for the Enterprise Innovation Institute. And he had, I think, over 100 interviews, mainly from Bratislava. And so he had some observations I'd like to share, and also some of my observations. But let me tell you a little bit about Georgia Tech. Georgia Tech's the largest university-based economic development unit in the United States. And last year, we generated over $5 billion in investment. And we were focused mainly on Georgia, but we created 48,000 jobs and helped over 600 industries in doing this. You know, I say that, but keep in mind, Georgia Tech has been working on this for 50 years. And some of the programs we have been extremely effective. We have presence in the state of Georgia in 12 locations and different programs that we work in. I want to talk about 3 of them real quickly. One of them is what we call Venture Lab, and that's where we support faculty and students that are trying to take their research and commercialize it. And so we support those with mentors and with financial support. And then we have the Georgia Research Alliance, which has been an amazing non-NGO that works with all universities in Georgia and provides individuals at those universities with startup grants, anywhere from $25,000 to $250,000 in grants and loans. And they also have a venture capital fund that will take an equity investment in those firms. And that has helped. We've got 34 universities and colleges in Georgia. So that is a partnership with the state, government, and philanthropic resources. And that's been very successful. And the third is something we started about 2 years ago called Partners for Inclusive Innovation. And it is Georgia Tech based, but it's got funding from business and government and philanthropy. And they go into the rural parts of the state and work with people to help support them on their entrepreneurial and innovative projects. I understand they've got 150 projects going, and they look at workforce development, they look at community development, they look at student engagement, and they focus on those things, and it's had a huge impact. I think last year they funded $17 million and helped over 600 businesses in that area. And one thing that I think might be important for Slovakia is having the state, like Georgia, understand the economic impact. And my undergraduate degree was in economics, and I used to remember the multiplier effect. Multiplier effect is for every dollar of state money invested, typically you get $1.7 in return. The multiplier effect for Enterprise Innovation Institute is $406 for every dollar of state and federal money that's been invested. For the Partners in Inclusive Innovation, it's, I think, $73. So the state recognizes the power of the academic institutions, and they have worked to eliminate bureaucracy. They have worked to, support through the budget. And, I think it's a good model, but the perception here, David Bridges, who was the vice president of this, who was a Fulbright, spent all his time in Bratislava. And he made, one of his observations was the ecosystem here is not very good. And he made the statement that outside of universities in Bratislava, there were no innovative centers. But he didn't come to Košice. I've been very impressed with what I've seen here. And yes, there's a long way to go, but I'm impressed with the leadership and their understanding of the obstacles they're trying to overcome. And so I think there's, some opportunities. I can share that Georgia Tech, through GLOBSEC, has been very interested in Slovakia for about 3 years and is exploring how we might have a physical presence here. They're leaning toward Bratislava. I'm trying to convince them to come to Košice. I don't know that I'll have much influence, but I think there's an opportunity, because one of the things that we're exploring is how can we use this concept of peace engineering to address the conflict in Ukraine. And because of the location here and within the Carpathian Euro region, I think there's tremendous opportunities to help support entrepreneurs and SMEs in the region.
Absolutely. Košice has a thriving and impressive innovation ecosystem, mainly in IT technologies, and it's been in a spotlight now, thanks to, unfortunately, the war in Ukraine. So I think there is absolutely a very good argument to be made about having a presence of Georgia Tech in Košice, and that would make a ton of sense, in my opinion. Let us now turn from the academic perspective to the practical or industry perspective. Peter, from your industry perspective, let's say, what do you see as the key factors that encourage collaboration between research institutions and the private sector in Slovakia, especially perhaps in the IT sector, since you're involved in Košice IT Valley, and obviously to create academic spin-offs and for technology transfer, it is very important for the private sector to communicate with the universities, something that Slovakia doesn't seem to be as good at yet, right?
There is room for improvement, that's for sure. The question you asked can be answered in the 40 minutes that we still have, but I will try to be as concise as possible. I can follow up on what Miro said. There are a lot of challenges on technical university, on private sector, in legal frameworks. There's still a lot of things that we can do. What I can say is that still the trend, I believe, is good, because the collaboration between private industries and private businesses, even through clusters like Košice IT Valley with universities, is getting better. I think there are more and more cases of collaboration. And I think that is important, but we need to we need to boost the speed of that I'm sure of, because you said that the ecosystem in Košice is good. I think there really is still place for improvement, but there are some positive examples. I would go even a step back when it comes to entrepreneurialism that you mentioned, because I don't think entrepreneurialism in Slovakia is something that is considered cool, something that students want to explore even as an option. The venture lab that you mentioned is something that's definitely not yet available in Slovakia, and it is definitely something that is missing. So we can go through several options here. We need probably a legal framework, as you mentioned, for companies to be started out of universities, because Some people at universities even have their own companies, but are not usually connected to the universities. These are private enterprises. The second thing is the use of the infrastructure. Here I can really just say big applause to Technicom, because I believe that we have some infrastructure that we can use, and Technical University as well. Even University of Paul Jozef Šafárik has their healthcare parks and stuff like that. So the infrastructure is here. Whether it is available to the private enterprises, that is a bit harder question, but there is an opportunity to collaborate there. The communication, what would encourage was the question. I don't believe the communication between universities and SMEs is easy. I think it's still quite rigid, it's complicated. It's not something that even the small companies imagine that they can work with universities. It's something they don't even think about. I think that's the problem. And then, of course, the entrepreneurialism. People do not want to be entrepreneurs, usually. That's definitely an issue. Entrepreneurialism, entrepreneurship, the skills of being an entrepreneur are something that is not even being taught or is very little included in the curriculum of elementary and middle school, high schools. So this is something that is missing as well. And of course the financing, because once you are talking that you are giving grants and loans to companies from 20,000 to 250,000, I think you mentioned, I think the financing is still an issue. While there are some also EU activities to boost the funding to SMEs, this is not something that companies are usually aware of or are taking benefit of. And there are several other things that we can go into deeper.
Absolutely, there was quite a few valid points that you made there, and I'm glad that I see in the audience Peter Kolisár, who is the CEO of Civita, and I would like to use this opportunity, Peter, if you will allow me to also address this question to you as someone who works a lot with startups, as someone who learned from the best in Estonia how to do it. What is your perspective on academic spin-off? How could we accelerate the technology transfer? How could we encourage the cooperation between the private sector and academia? How could we tap really into the potential that I think that we see here at the Expo Forum and that exists here clearly in Slovakia and Košice and elsewhere?
Thank you, Katka. So I think actually entrepreneurship is at the very core of the problem why in Slovakia we don't see as many spin-offs as let's say in Estonia or definitely not the US. One problem is cultural. Another is that entrepreneurship is not part of the curricula, basically from kindergarten to universities. There are a lot of kind of informal initiatives that have entrepreneurship projects and that kind of educate students outside of school essentially. But what we need desperately is a systemic change, and either have entrepreneurship courses for all types of students, not only business students, but anybody that studies at a university, either attend an entrepreneurship course or, even better, implement entrepreneurship elements into all of the curriculum, so that researchers and university students actually look at problems around themselves and try to find solutions to those problems, ideally solutions connected to their own research or field of study. This is what we are actually trying to do. We are now running an entrepreneurship program together with ESET for Slovak researchers in Bratislava, but for researchers from around Slovakia essentially. So we have 28 researchers. And we run them through a 3-month program where we look at their specific projects they're working on from different areas, and actually teach them or co-create with them the journey, so that they not only work on their solution, but that actually solution matches a demand or a specific market need. and from that they can actually develop something meaningful with an impact. It can be commercial impact, it can be societal impact, but this is the key. And I would actually like to hear it from Robert, maybe what is his approach to entrepreneurship at universities? Is it rather including entrepreneurship elements across the curricula, or having a specific kind of courses in entrepreneurship for researchers or students that are interested in being an entrepreneur?
Thank you. I think the programs you described are great. There's one program, and I don't want to be an American that comes here and says do what we do, because we don't do things that great. But I think you can still adapt ideas. So one program that I was involved in when I was young as an advisor was something called Junior Achievement. And I don't know, do you have Junior Achievement here?
We do, yeah.
Okay.
We used to have. I don't know if we do.
We do?
Yeah.
And I think programs like that are great for young people, because you don't label them as entrepreneurs, but when they come through it, they understand they are. And one of the things that I've seen that happen at the universities, I spent 25 years in business and got into academia late in my life. And one of the first courses I taught, they said, oh, you're a businessman, you need to teach entrepreneurship. And it was totally focused on financial aspects of being an entrepreneur. When I got to Georgia Tech, I was asked to develop and teach a course on social entrepreneurship. And students were very interested in that. So the class was always full. And so I think the idea of expanding the definition of entrepreneurship to include the social impact could be very valuable. I mean, that's quite frankly what we're trying to do with this peace engineering. When you think about finance, originally finance was just return on investment and financial instruments. Now you've got impact investing, and you've got ESG, and you've got all these other elements that investors are looking for more than a financial return. I think, and I'll say we have that in entrepreneurship too. We're trying to get that element integrated into engineering so that engineers don't just ask the question, can I build it? The question is, should I build it? And if I build it, looking into the future and consequences, should I design and build it differently? So I think expanding the definition of entrepreneurship and doing programs with young people and in schools, I think would be good. But I think the program you're describing is excellent.
Thank you, both Peter and Bob. I think that this human capital and talent and entrepreneurship perspective is very interesting. So let's stay with this aspect of the topic for a little bit longer. I have my own experience with this. I used to teach master students in the last semester of their studies, and so I was always curious to know what they would like to do, and perhaps 1 or 2 months' time they would have their diplomas in their hands. And so what is it that they envisage for their careers? And throughout the years, it happened to me once that I got a response from a young lady student who told me, I would like to build my own business. And it was one in hundreds, perhaps thousands students that have been asked the same question. It is fair to say that it was the Faculty of International Relations at the University of Economics in Bratislava. So it's perhaps not the first faculty or first field that comes to your mind when talking about entrepreneurship or business. But I think that this also shows how we are not mentally somehow in the region or in Slovakia. We somehow are afraid of building our own business, and we don't have, I don't know whether it is the fear or what is it that causes this, but I see Miro that you would like to respond, so please.
I think you hit the point, because a lot of those problems we are talking right now about is in our heads. Because being entrepreneur, it means that we got to change the way how we think. We must move out from our comfort zone and have a little bit risky life. Risky by meaning that many successful businesses, many successful people will tell you that they have many fails or they experience several fails in their business in the past. Maybe third, fourth, fifth business becomes successful or unicorn and so on. And a lot of also our students in the university, they think that their life or they want to play safe. So they want to just find a job after the university. They're not thinking that I will start my own business. And actually I think that during the study at the university, for example, is the best time to run own business. At the same time as I'm studying, you know, I don't need to maybe pay too much for rent. I don't need to pay for the children. So it's, I think, a perfect time to start business. So this is, I think, good for startups. Different situation is in spin-offs because in most cases those are the employees of the universities, and those employees are also playing safe. It means that university wants me to teach, so I'm teaching. University wants me to publish, or die, or perish. So I'm publishing my research on conferences and in journals because they want me to do this work. And when we are talking from my position from University Science Park with those employees that try to think out of the box, expand your collaboration with the companies, try to identify what market needs, maybe some of the work you are doing or ideas you have could be easily just, you know, transferred into some company, and you can build your business based on knowledge which you gained at the university. Because at the university, in many fields, we are on the top. We understand the recent state, and we know where this field is heading to. So it's always an advantage in business if I understand where, you know, the trend is targeting. So our employees are not thinking this way, and this is the problem. So one of the challenges we are facing in, and what we are trying to change at our university is, as my previous head of the park, Mr. Jakab said, is evangelism. It's like explaining them that this is the way they should try, and we are working on workshops for them. We are making some guidelines. We are talking with them, inviting them to our projects, because University Science Park is always is more connected with the industry than the faculties are. So we are inviting them, or we are selling various services of the university. So we are inviting those researchers come and be involved in some delivery of service to specific company, and this could change the way how you think, but it's very painy. It goes really slow. Maybe we are not the mentality, which is, you know, we're trying to play safe, and we need to somehow explain to our researchers, to our academic staff, to think out the box, out of something they are used to do every day, and it's quite risky. So we are trying to give them support to find maybe some risk capital, so they will feel a little bit more comfortable when starting their own business. And it's something also what we miss here at the Eastern Slovakia, the risk capital for these ideas we have at the university.
Thank you. Peter, you're a successful founder yourself. What do you think, in your experience, what are the skills that are the most critical for academics transitioning into the business world? How can we help develop those skills? And then, gentlemen, please feel free to comment on it also from the academic perspective.
I will probably just confirm what my predecessor said, because what Peter said, I think, quite well, is that there is the cultural thing, and then there is the thing of the skill. One, we don't have the culture to become entrepreneurs. I think there are quite a few students here in the audience, and maybe if they can raise a hand if they are thinking about starting their own business. I don't see anybody. Yeah, so that's the first thing, the cultural thing, you know. And for that to change, we need to work on several things. Education of those skills, probably a nice case study, a successful unicorn from Slovakia would probably boost the cultural thing of starting an own business. The fear of failure that you mentioned. It is considered that if you fail a business here, you are some kind of fraudster or something. It's absolutely not that. Starting a startup is most probably going to fail. You know, I don't know what the statistics are. Peter definitely does, but most of the startups fail, just like that. So this is also something that we need to address and explain that, okay, failing a startup is not a problem. That's why they call it the risk capital. This needs to change, definitely. And I can follow up. You mentioned that you taught at economical university. I studied at the technical university here in Košice. Miro was one of my professors. And there were 400 computer science students, I think, at the first year. And I don't think there are more than 2 or 3 companies started from that. So, and that's maybe optimistic. So it is also not something that happens at computer science. And if it is not happening at economic university, at computer science, I don't know where else are we going to find those founders at the universities.
Absolutely. So it sounds like we need some kind of combination, because we mentioned a lot of how we need to start an early age, right? With programs like Junior Achievement and with programs that some companies and NGOs are doing, but we definitely need also the state to chip in, right, at very early stages. Is there something that the universities can do while waiting for the state to incorporate the curricular reforms? How can universities encourage this skill development necessary for entrepreneurship, for people to venture into their own business? Also, what we have a specificity in the EU, I would say, is that we have a lot of public funding for research, so it's not even kind of a financial risk that much for academics to pursue their project, because they have, and very often it's 100% funding, so these are very, very comfortable funds in terms of low risk, I would say. But we are not successful enough into turning those solutions and those results into marketable products and to turn them on the market.
You know, I think a couple of things. I know in the state of Georgia, there was a concerted effort to educate our government officials about the potential impact of research and commercialization. And when that started happening, you saw a shift in the research agenda. It wasn't huge at first, but we were very much like the universities here. I mean, I was here in 1993, and the purpose of the trip was to talk to the universities here about, in the United States, what's called a land grant, or our public service. So this law was passed in 1862, and it gave land to now over 100 universities, and their task was to take their research and make it practical for farmers and people in business. And so that's been very successful. So part of it is education of government officials, and to get the business community behind that. And part of it is the university to shift their research agenda and incentives to that. I also want to go back to this thing about failure. I was a businessman for 25 years. I was successful most of it. I was a failure once. I learned more from that failure than I ever did from getting my MBA and from the success in business. And I think universities make a mistake when we invite speakers to come in and they only talk about their success. They should, you know, we should have programs where speakers come in and talk about their failures and what they learn. And I'm talking about Georgia Tech too, because most of the time Georgia Tech speakers, they come in and they talk about how rich they are and how successful they are. And there's only been 1 or 2 times that I've seen a speaker that talked about what he learned from their failures. So I think it's education, it's research, it's what we present to the students, how we prepare them. I mean, it used to be probably 20 years ago, the same thing in Silicon Valley, that if you were a failure, you could never get any other money. Now the venture capitalists really are asking, how many times have you failed? Because if you failed, we know you've learned something. And so a number of venture capitalists are really looking for past failures as an indicator, do they want to invest in you? So yeah, those shifts.
Absolutely, absolutely. I think that's a crucial point, in fact, to not be afraid to try because of the failure, because the failure is also something that belongs to life and that we can learn a lot from, right? We have 20 more minutes left of the discussion, and I would like to reach out to the audience. Are there any questions or comments from the audience before we move on? I cannot see you very well if you're raising your hands or something.
Okay,
Oh,
I will try a quick reaction, if I may. So I really like Bob's point about the definition of entrepreneurship. We actually need to push and like spread awareness about the different definition of entrepreneurship, what typically that our students typically think about. Because right now we think, or most people think about entrepreneurship as a technical way of setting up a business, right? The financials, the operational part. But in reality, how entrepreneurship should be seen is as turning ideas into action or turning research into impact for academic spin-offs. So really looking at problems around you worth solving and try to address them with an idea, try to validate the idea, change the idea if it doesn't work, and go forward. So this is entrepreneurship. Not everybody needs to become a businessman, but everybody should look at what they're doing as something that can have a potential impact on their community, on their municipality, on their country, or globally. And this is the shift of the mindset about entrepreneurship, not as building a business necessarily, but about looking at problems around you with open eyes. And the second reaction to what Miro was saying is that students really do think as their primary job option as basically getting hired by a corporate, especially IT students. And you very well know that IT students in Košice, they already get so many offers when they're second-year students that and once they get hired by some of the big companies, it's very, very difficult to kind of get out, because the comfort of getting a salary for the first time in their life is huge. So I think the room where we have to catch those students is basically first and second year. If we don't do that, then typically mostly the IT students, they get hired and of course they produce some value, but it's very difficult to turn them into entrepreneurs. So I think this is the core focus that we should have, students that start their studies at a university.
Thank you, Peter. And before I let you comment on what has been said, we have a question also from Slido. Let me read it out loud. Perhaps people and students in Slovakia need more mentors and leaders who can show how to start new business, mentor them, teach, help with advices, right?
Right, but frankly speaking, I don't have such a leaders at the university to provide support to our spin-offs or startups, So basically what we do is we have an accelerator program for our startups at the University Startup Center. We are asking leaders from companies here in region, skilled managers on high positions, to be a consultant or advisors for those startups, helping them to grow, identify the problems, find the money. And I have a good feedback from this, because in most cases those are really experienced people. They can identify in a few minutes where the problem of the startup is. They can tell you what they should, tell the startup what they should improve in order to be successful, or if the idea is not successful, they are speaking in this to startup. So I think this is the way. And what is really positive that most of those mentors and leaders coming from the big companies are doing this for free. They feel the social responsibility, and I really appreciate this. And maybe one another note I forgot to mention, that just to change the way how people think, we need from the early age of people here. And I really like the activity which is done here in Košice region by self-governing region. We have Innovation Center of Košice region, and I know that they have lectures specifically for the students at the secondary schools, vocational schools, grammar schools, and they are trying to explain to students how to think in this way, how they can maybe start their own business. And if we maybe change the way how people think on secondary schools, when they will come to the university, they maybe will start their own startup. So I think the earlier we start to show this as one of the ways they can choose for their lives, it will be better for our ecosystem.
If I may just add to that, help is given to those who ask. If you need a mentor or a business mentor, somebody that is going to help you with your idea, I think there are opportunities. Just like as Milo said right now at Technicom, in Košice we have this innovation center by the self-governing region, and there are several entrepreneurs and several specialists that if you approach them, I would be surprised if they said, no, I'm not gonna help you. It doesn't really happen. These people are many times available and are keen to help startups in the region because they understand that if they want to live here in this region, then we need to build SMEs and local economy, because that's the only sustainable way for this region. Because the corporates that are here, it's not something that is given, and it can change quite quickly.
I think on the this idea of mentors, one idea I would explore. I mean, I've met a lot of entrepreneurs, and they're very impressive. The most impressive I've ever met run NGOs, because NGOs have to address a market that they don't know what their market is. They don't have access to a capital market, and we pay them less. And yet, because of that, because even in spite of those barriers, some of them are very successful. So using NGO leaders to mentor and help and guide people, not so much in setting a business, but teaching the entrepreneurial spirit. Also, in the U.S., we have a program called SCORE. It's retired executives. And it is a very valuable resource that people that retire then can mentor and help executives and young people. And a lot of them are just sitting there waiting to be asked to call. And then finally, too, on this idea of what populations we're going to and students and the mindset. Every university I know is going after those students that want to set up a business and be the next unicorn and give a $50 million gift to their university. I mean, we love those. Georgia Tech actually has 3 or 4 of them, and it's nice when they write that check. But there is a subset of students that are coming, I think in the U.S., and I think they're here too. They don't want just a job, they want a job that has meaning. They want to feel like they're leaving the world a better place. And I think to target that population would be very interesting, because now you're selling something different. And I think that could help with social entrepreneurship. I think it could help with entrepreneurship, because there are a lot of businesses out there that are setting up as a for-profit business, and yet they're providing a social good.
There is another activity which I think could be helpful for our university here. A few years ago, the European Commission started initiative to create the network of European universities. So multiple universities have one roof as an European university, and Technical University of Košice is part of a Ulysses alliance. So with another 9 universities, we are forming one alliance. At the end of this initial phase, maybe in 1 year, we will have one common study programs. So it means that student will enter to study in Košice, but Second semester will study in Nice, third semester in Germany and across the Europe, in Finland. And this could change the mindset of our students because they will see a different culture, not only the culture, but the university culture, the culture of business thinking at those universities. And there are some complementary actions when we are creating this European university. One of the actions is Train the Trainer program in supporting startups and spin-offs. So our people from my University Science Park are traveling to another university to see how their ecosystem is providing services for spin-offs. So we can easily transfer their knowledge, their skills to our ecosystem. And I think this is one of the ways which should really help to make this transition faster at our university, to change the mind of the students. We will push away more than 100 students next year from Košice to other universities in Europe. And I'm sure that when they will return back, they will see many things differently as they see now.
Thank you all. I'm thrilled to hear so many ideas and so many projects already going on to help entrepreneurship and the entrepreneurial spirit in students to develop the right skill set. But let me, in the last 10 minutes of our discussion, come to a topic that is related, in my opinion, to spin-offs, but we do not talk about it so much in this context. And since we're in Košice, we have a representative of Košice IT Valley cluster, which is, I think, unlike many of the clusters in the region or in Slovakia, to my knowledge, that are more purely industry clusters and more like lobby organizations. The Košice IT Valley cluster, I think, is much more than that, has successfully incorporated also the Technical University of Košice, the academic sector. And so I think that there is a big role to play for clusters. So a question to all of you, Miro, from the academic perspective, Peter, from your perspective from Košice IT Valley, and Bob, in general, what role can clusters play, and is this something that could accelerate the creation of spin-offs in Slovak universities? Whoever would like to start, let's do 3 minutes per answer.
I am a member of the board of the Košice IT Valley, so I will speak about Košice IT Valley a bit. Košice IT Valley is an organization that has 80-something members. It's and I think that's partly answers your question, because the cluster should cluster the organization, and IT Valley is clustering private enterprises, large corporates and SMEs as well, universities and even high schools, and then the self-governing region, cities and other municipalities. And if we are talking about how to connect academia and the private sector, clusters are an opportunity where they can network and create relationships, because particularly for the SMEs, it's not that easy to communicate with universities and with municipalities and large organizations. There, for example, the role of the cluster can come in handy, because you're represented at a stronger force where you can communicate with the university, particularly about curricula, about collaboration, about things that you think that matter for the growth of your business.
Are there such things, for instance, as common joint project applications from the cluster that would, foster the collaboration between academia and business within Košice IT Valley?
Whether there already exist? There are several things that maybe some of you are familiar with. The project, the Živé IT project, is where companies can collaborate with universities on particular topics. That's probably something that is really worth mentioning. There is also the educational part of the Košice IT Valley, because IT Valley is teaching a lot of students and teachers, particularly in computer science, but also connected to the entrepreneurial skill. So these are also opportunities, I would say. And then there is the networking part and the representation part that is also important at IT Valley, because even meeting with people from the universities and from municipalities, it might be helpful when you are, for example, prototyping your startup and you need a place to do so, or you need an access to some infrastructure.
Absolutely. Miro, do you think that there is a value in the university's membership in the cluster? Has it helped you? How has it helped you in your spin-off efforts at the university and at Technicum Science Park?
Technical University Košice is one of the founding members of this Košice IT Valley initiative. For me, the IT Valley is not a cluster. For me, it's a group of really smart people because I'm working with them, so I see cluster as those people who are trying to work for better good here in region, and we see the results. I'm glad that they are sitting at the UVP Technicum, so for me it's just to change the floor and I can discuss with them. And they are led by really amazing director, Miriama Hučková. I got to mention her because she did a lot of good, not only for my university by interconnecting our students with the companies, and we are doing tens of events together. They did also a lot of region employability here in region. They're helping young people to stay here, to see. There was some activity a few years ago that východ do not mean exit. And I think activities like these are showing to young people from our region that staying here is an option for a good life. And without young, good and smart people, this region will not grow. And I think they are supplying maybe many governmental institutions here in the eastern Slovakia, just giving a hope to those people. I had several meetings where IT Valley was presenting the region for potential investors. And I'm sure that the presentation by IT Valley was one of the decisions why they choose Eastern Slovakia as their place for business. So for me, IT Valley is very valuable from the business perspective of, its ecosystem. If someone wants to create its own spin-off, they will stay here at the ecosystem. So it must be functional ecosystem. And it's all about the people. So for me, this is really a platform for growth, for supporting this ecosystem. I absolutely love IT Valley. Maybe what I will also underline are their practical activities for students at the secondary schools. I know they are trying to support STEM teaching of STEM subjects. This is very important for us, and we see where the new technology is heading to. We will need a lot of STEM educated people. Such small steps they are doing here in the region, I think, are making a big picture of a community of people who are helping to our university also to have a student. So absolutely, for me, it's an amazing cluster, and we got to support them more, I think.
And if I may just add, once we're speaking about IT Valley as such, with all of those activities that they do, and Miriama Hučková that you mentioned, I would just like to mention that the entire cluster has a budget of around 300,000 euros. It's not a large organization and has about 5 to 6 FTEs, like full-time employees. So it's not a large organization, though they are making a lot of activities and they are making a lot of impact.
Wonderful, thank you so much. So here we have a case study of a cluster that seems to have a really good added value. Bob, what do you think? Is it the case in general, or how can clusters help spin-offs?
I don't know that we refer to it as clusters in the U.S., but what you were saying, the people are important in those relationships. So I think any organization that allows universities to engage and listen. A lot of times universities will come and tell, but we need universities to listen. And I think here in Košice, in this region, I've been so impressed with the Carpathian Foundation and what they've done and how they've engaged businesses and governments and local NGOs and people and opportunities to build relationships. And I think that's kind of the key is, so when I was first here, we were trying to get the university to come out of the ivory tower, and engage with the people. And I think there have been great progress in that. But more, more engagement, not only with the business community, but with venture capitalists and with government officials and people in villages, and I think would be great. So, yeah, I think that's a key to university engagement and learning.
Thank you so much. We have a little bit more than 1 minute left, so I turn to the audience one last time. If anyone wants to ask a question or make a comment, the last opportunity is now. Very briefly, perhaps. Okay, no urgent matters from the audience, so perhaps one sentence to recap our discussion. What do you perceive as the most important thing going forward in trying to boost the spin-off activity, the technology transfer, and the interconnection between business and academia? One perhaps most important thing that we should focus on.
It is called ecosystem because university needs, government needs companies which will pay taxes, and also we need those taxes for our teachers. And we need young people who are well educated and will stay here. So the work I do at the University Science Park, for me, it's not just a job, it's a mission. I'm trying to make a really good working environment for our university staff, for our students, to make their technology transfer more simpler, to support their ideas, to support the IPR. Many things can be done at the University Science Park. And I'm really glad that I have a good partners here, like the Košice self-governing region, like IT Valley and other IT companies who are willing to help. And I got to say also that I'm thankful to our university. There's the technology transfer and supporting of this innovation ecosystem is one of the priorities. So I hope that the Technical University will be leader in the field they are doing here, and that maybe if we will meet in 1 year, we will conclude that we did a big step forward in this field.
We're holding our fingers crossed for that.
Hopefully, yeah. I would just like to emphasize the urgency that we have here, because we really need to start and build the local economy, the local ecosystem, and the SMEs here in order to have any sustainable future for this region.
And I just say, I think it's engagement, and I think also look at it, I know there are a lot of obstacles and I know there are a lot of problems, but there also is tremendous opportunity and potential here. So take advantage of it.
Wonderful. So people, urgency, and engagement is what we need and what we wish for. And with that, please allow me to thank my panelists, Mr. Miroslav Michalko, Mr. Peter Šoltes, and Professor Bob Thomas. Thank you. Thank you all also for listening, and have a nice day and nice end of the conference.